What was the worst decision you saw someone else make? Story 1. When I was about 7 years old, I was in the car with my parents, going across the bridge from Niagara Falls, Ontario to Niagara Falls, New York. The deadly Niagara River is right below. There was quite a wait due to traffic, so we were pretty much stopped. A bunch of teenagers were goofing around, hopping out of their car, and play fighting, etc. One guy hopped up on the railing of the bridge and did a handstand. It was terrifying. His friends yelled at him, and he hopped down. Then he did it again and fell over the railing to his death. Story 2. A friend signed with a professional sports organization at 18 years old for $2 million and spent 95 of it on junk without put any of it into an investment fund. Story 3. I had a friend ask another friend to shoot him with a blow dart. First, the guy shot him in the leg, but my friend thought that was too easy. He was an overly confident Marine Reserve, so he asked him to shoot him in the side. The guy did, and it punctured his lung, though he wouldn't admit it. Then, trying to play it cool, he decided to go home. When really he was going to the hospital, we all followed him to his car, tried to convince him to let one of us drive or call an ambulance, but he just kept saying nothing was wrong. He collapsed right as he unlocked his car, and we had to call 911. He's fine, aside from his injured ego and dimwits. Story 4. Some idiot I used to know was convinced pepper in the eye wasn't nearly as painful as people made it sound. We just watched him pour pepper in his open eyes and laughed when the screaming began. Story 5. Saw a rookie drinker at a house party mix Snapple with a half a glass of Everclear, thinking Everclear was a simple alcohol mixer. 20 minutes later, projectile vomit everywhere. In a redeeming moment, a few hours later, he drunkenly got up from his sleep and decided to haphazardly mop the kitchen and went back to sleep. Story 6. There was one incident in my hometown that made me want to tear my hair out. A family moved in a few years ago. They had 2 children, a boy and a girl. The mother was looking for work as a teacher, but there was no opening, so she worked as an aide. My mother was on the school board at the time, and she noticed that parents were complaining about the lady, as she was apparently ignoring students and favoring others, getting angry when her children got bad grades from the other teachers, etc. Mom invited her to the next school board meeting to discuss the situation, and the lady went nuts. The conversation broke down into screaming, and the lady swore she would take Mom's spot on the board. Sure enough, when election sign-ups went up online, she was the only person who ran against Mom. After months of an attempted smear campaign, Mom won the election with more than 200 votes. The lady only got 5, all from her extended family. So what does the lady do? She decides to pull both of her children out of public school, as she doesn't want them corrupted by the teachers and the board. The son was a senior in high school, months away from graduation, and the daughter was in middle school. My sister was in her class, and she said the daughter screamed and kicked her mom as she dragged her out of the classroom to check her out, begging her not to do it. She left all of her stuff in her locker, and the school had to send it to them. When Mom heard the news, she was horrified and tried to talk to the family. But the father had been browbeaten by his wife and refused to put the kids back in public. It's been a couple of years since then. The mom homeschooled the kids, but the son works in the oil field and is trying to get his GED. The daughter is a complete rebel and has been arrested numerous times for drunk driving and vandalism. But the mom still has the audacity to act smug whenever someone runs into her at the grocery store. At least my children know how to live in the real world. Sure, Kathy, keep telling yourself that when you have to bail your kid out from jail. Edit, I know Reddit is pretty passionate about children, but wow, this blew up on me. For the record, yes, her name is actually Kathy. I believe she pulled him out as a way to get back at my mom, as she was her enemy since she didn't get a teaching job or her spot on the board. So she blamed her for everything. Mom didn't hate her in the slightest, but was very upset that she did this to her kids, who didn't do anything wrong. Both kids were under 18, so the son couldn't just go back on his own. Story 7 was in Yosemite doing a hike up to the top of, I think, Vernal Falls. Some kid from a large church group decided to swim at the top in the seemingly, but not really calm water at the top. I saw him get swept away and taken over the edge. The water has been running over there for thousands of years, so the rocks are smooth and there's no vegetation. There's literally nothing to grab a hold of if it happened to you. Was not in the mood to see a kid die that day. Read the signs, and please stay out of the water like you were told. Edit, for even more grim details, the body wasn't found that day, or the next. I spoke to a ranger, and he said that sometimes they don't get to retrieve the body until the summer, when the falls have dried up. This is because often the bodies get stuck in a current and thrown around in one area at the bottom like they're in a washing machine. It's impossible to get to or even see them. I have no idea what's left of them after months of that, so stay well clear. Story 8, my friend, on why he proposed to his controlling, angry girlfriend of 5 miserable years. I did it, so she would stop asking. Wedding is in 3 months. Story 9, at trivia night at a TGI Fridays. One of the questions was which band originally wrote and sang While My Guitar Gently Weeps. I said it was the Beatles, but a friend said that it was Prince. Cue a bunch of people saying, wait. I think you're right. Yeah, he had that awesome live solo a few years ago. I insisted it was the Beatles. So we put to vote. I lost the vote, and we lost that point. You, Gavin, you team. Edit, you can't Google or use smartphones in trivia. Outside a bar, the bouncers offer to pay for a cab. Guy says no, calls his girlfriend. She won't pick him up because of the baby. He says he won't drive, walks off, gets in his car, does 80 miles per hour down a side road, and gets busted for DUI, offered a free cab ride home, FD up his life, could have killed someone. Story 10, I went to a party with a friend, and she smoked meth. I worked in retail in college and met her there. She was really nice, and we had the same sense of humor. After a few weeks, she invited me to a house party in the middle of nowhere, and it was all dudes in their 30s. She was dating one of them, and we were like the only girls. I wanted to leave right away because not only were the people weird, but the house was weird too. Like there were no outlet covers on the outlets and barely any furniture, but there was a stripper pole in the living room. She drove and convinced me to stay for one drink. When I got back from the kitchen with a beer, she asked me if I wanted to smoke meth. She actually called it something else, but I didn't understand and only figured it out after she started explaining it to me. I declined and then watched kind of in shock as she started to smoke it while her boyfriend started telling me that it wasn't as bad as people think. I ended up calling my boyfriend to come get me and walking to the main road to wait for him because I really didn't want to be near that house. The next time I saw her at work, she told me that a few hours after I had left, a guy who had been punched at the party had called the cops, and she had been too afraid to go back to her car after running from the house, so she had spent the whole night just walking around in the nearby woods. I quit like 2 months later and never saw her again, but my friend who continued to work there told me a few months after the girl was fired for smoking meth in the bathroom at work. Story 11, my cousin dropped a full ride baseball scholarship at a college in a town. He grew up wanting to move to for a girl. He started dating his senior year of high school. She was 2 years younger than him. He went to a state school instead that's 40 minutes from his hometown. She cheated on him, and they broke up not long after school started. Ouch. Story 12, a woman married my ex-husband after she witnessed him snapping my wrist like a twig, carrying on an affair with him for a year of our marriage, and knowing full well he was an addict. It was like watching a train wreck. I had to keep repeating to myself that it wasn't my problem. Story 13, my friend met a girl at a wedding on the last night of a short overseas trip and decided to cancel his flight home the next day and stay in a foreign country with no job, no place to live, barely any money, and a tourist visa, just to try and get with her. This was 5 years ago, and they're engaged now. So I guess the decision was in a way the best decision he ever made. Still seemed really short-sighted at the time, though. Story 14, once in middle school. While we were changing after gym class, this one kid decided to steal my Axe body spray out of my locker. He was completely naked and ran away when I confronted him. As he got to the other side of the locker bay, he hopped up on the bench and, as if to taunt me, sprayed the Axe body spray directly into the tip of his penis. Definitely did not seem pleasant. Story 15, my dad watched his best friend for 35 years drink himself into an alcoholic, essentially ruining his own life. They were drinking buddies for a long time, but my dad began to suspect he had a problem and tried to shake him out of it and quit drinking himself to avoid encouraging him to drink. His best friend's eventual DUIs, an increasingly protective wife, led to a strain on his relationship with my dad and anyone else he knew from high school and college. Now his wife won't let anybody talk to him ever again. My dad misses him greatly and won't stop telling stories about the antics they used to get up to when they were kids, always addressing him as uncle. In the last few years we used to see each other. They started out in the sandbox at age 2 and eventually broke loose in their 30s. Edit a sentence. Story 16, secondhand story, but here we go. Colleague of a friend came into work excited about having bought a new house. Thought Shed got a great deal because they took like $50K off the original price. Why? Because they found out the place was completely infested with termites. Really all she bought was a very expensive piece of land. Edit for clarity, no. She wasn't deceived or misled by the previous owner. She knowingly bought Termite City. Story 17, I know a guy who was supposedly recruited to be part of Vancouver Symphony Orchestra, not even out of high school. Saw his girlfriend dance with another guy at graduation, and in a fit of drunken jealously punched a brick wall and shattered a dozen bones in his hand. Never played an instrument again. Story 18, a girl married her boyfriend this summer after junior year of high school. Then they dropped out and then split up before they were even married a year. I don't always judge people for marrying young, but this was clearly a series of bad decisions. Story 19, my best friend was marrying a girl just because they had a kid together. Everything was working out fine between them as friends and their daughter, though only 3, seemed happy as well. Then they started to be friends with benefits and began dating again. Out of nowhere, they announced that they were getting married. Everyone knew this was a bad idea considering their history, and that marriage shouldn't be a thing you just try one day. Anyway, the wedding day comes, and it's your typical affair: church, priest, gown, flower girl, cake, etc. It was an uncomfortable experience for us as his friends since we felt it wasn't set to last between the two of them. We didn't know how right we were. 2 months in, and they're fighting almost every night. He tells me that anything will trigger a fight between them. One night it comes to a head when their fighting becomes physical. She shoves him, he shoves back. She punches him in the chin, he hits her in the left eye hard. Problem is she's petite and only 5 feet tall. Meanwhile, he's a 6 feet 3 in, former bodybuilder. She ended up calling the cops and having him arrested. She now has full custody of their daughter, and he spent 3 weeks in jail over the whole thing. So much for giving marriage a try. Story 20. Have a friend who got her boyfriend's initials tattooed on her wrist when they've been dating for 2 months. Fast forward 2-ish years. He's dropped out of college, broke a door down to get to her during a fight, has basically one friend who's a kleptomaniac who stole her medicine out of the capsules and tried to steal her car. She left him and got the tattoo removed. Story 21. A girl I dated for a few years broke up with me for a heroin addict dealer. I told her, this is going to ruin your life. It's been almost 10 years, and I think she's finally staying clean, but she lost a decent job and had some run-ins with cops, plus got pregnant between stints in rehab. Story 22. The decision: not going to work or calling in after getting into a fight with her ex-boyfriend who worked there. The consequences: 1. Got written up by the manager, her mom, leading to a fight between them. 2. The fight led to get quitting her job, moving out of her house, and moving in with a guy she had known for like 2 weeks, who was the reason she broke up with prior ex. 3. Dropped out of college because she no longer had a way to get there. 4. Lost all her savings because she was paying all the rent on this guy's 1BR apartment that they shared with his mom and his brother as well. 5. Got pregnant by this guy, but he ended up breaking up with her because she may have cheated on him. Details still unclear. 6. She moves back home and starts dating a convicted felon who's 7 years older than her. She was 27. She has her baby. Her mom's boyfriend offers free childcare. She goes back to work. Hey, things are looking up. 8. Her mom's boyfriend lets the kid watch too much TV. Her mom disapproves of the convict she's dating. Another fight. She moves out again to live with the convict. 9. She gets pregnant again 6 months after her first baby is born. 10. Quits her job because she can't pay for childcare. 11. She's just miserable now, and we don't talk anymore. It's worth noting that immediately before this happened, Shed stayed with me for a week and told my mom that my life was going to fall apart, because I chose to take a gap year before I went to college at Words, but I typed this whole thing while I was drunk. I'm really proud of myself. In retrospect, I probably should have used my throwaway account. Story 23. While I was studying at a Starbucks, I couldn't help but overhear a middle-aged woman talking a 20-something woman into what was definitely a pyramid scheme. She was selling different makeup packages that the younger woman could sell to her friends, had gold and premium packages too. Very much a shake your head in sorrow moment. Story 24. This happened at a family birthday party at the Pancake Manor. Some cousin of a cousin, 18 or 19 at the time, I think decided to try and impress the cute waitress by ordering 8 pancakes, saying he could totally eat them all. Everyone warns him off it, saying it's way too much. Even big, burly trod eyes can only do 4. He goes ahead with it regardless. Unsurprisingly, pukes his guts up. The waitress does not give him her number. Edit for everyone. The Pancake Manor, exterior and interior. Story 25 was 2 grades under this girl that was graduating in less than a month. She was brilliant and had amazing grades, but she dropped out to become a manager at Hungry Jack's Australia. She ended up getting demoted after a few months because they transferred a new manager in that had 20 years experience. She could have easily baked the cake and ate it as well, but to this day, I can't understand why she would just drop out like that. Her parents were pissed. Said, edit, this was high school. Sorry, I didn't realize I didn't add that in. Story 26. While over at his house, one of my best friends decided on a whim to snort cayenne pepper for science. It went about as well as you could expect. Story 27. This god-loser friend of mine was so desperate for attention when we were drinking, coupled with his douchebag competitive attitude that's always on. He told this cute girl mutual friend of ours to dare him to drink as much of the bottle of vodka as possible in one go. She was confused because those are some stupid words that came out of his mouth. She said, okay, what am I agreeing to? He drank like 80 of a huge bottle of vodka straight in like 10 seconds in a desperate attempt to impress this girl. So maybe she'd be so turned on by his willingness to do everything she says that maybe shed him. Instead, he got yelled at for being stupid threw up for like 6 hours, and cried for the rest of the night. I felt bad, but he's a god-awful friend who lost my friendship, so I laugh about it now. I'm 100 certain that he's going to die either drunk in his car going 120 on some road somewhere or both. Story 28, a girl decided not to withdraw from class. She had 55 overall in. She wanted to take the final and see things to the end. She then complained about how the F she got for the 5-credit-hour class killed her GPA, as well as some of her scholarships. Story 29, marry a drug dealer. They're both in jail now, probably going to prison. I'm all about recreational drug use and the right to choose what you do with your own life, but Jesus, really? How did she think this would end? Story 30, watch someone quit their 20-hour job blow. Through $25K of savings, get ripped off, try to restore a Honda from 80s. That's where the $25K went, lose all their friends, default on all credit cards, lose their luxury condo move-in with their grandpa, get kicked out by their grandpa move-in with their dad and stepmom, get new job for minimum wage at their dad's work. Why did all these things happen, you might ask? Severe fear of growing up. Not speculation, that's literally his reasoning. Edit also, this was 10 years ago, and right out of high school for those questioning whether or not 20 hours is anything. Story 31, turning to alcohol to feel good. My friend really likes to get drunk because he says it feels good and he enjoys it. Long story short, since he has become a university student, he has started excessive drinking every day when he knows that he can have a hangover the next day. That's up to 4 days a week on a regular basis. Don't get me wrong, it's not just a couple of beers, a full bottle of hard liquor every single one of those days. He drinks alone and most of the time until he just blacks out. He hides his behavior when he is at home visiting his family. And he has ignored every warning because he knows the danger of becoming an alcoholic from a case in his family. Story 32 saw a guy eat roadkill as part of the dare, hospitalized for 3 weeks for infection that led to vomiting, that maxillin wouldn't work, and that led to a hernia, which led to sepsis. Story 33, 2 of my friends were at a party drinking. Friend 1 shows off his gun to friend 2, tells him it's not loaded, points the gun at his head, and pulls the trigger. Forget the years of jail time. He has to live with killing his friend for the rest of his life. Story 34, that dude on Reddit who was like, nah, I've got plenty of experience with weed. I can handle I won't get instantly addicted if I try something else. Then he tried heroin, I think it was, and got instantly addicted. Story 35, so my fiance's cousin was donating 50 to Thon. Thon is a fundraiser held by Penn State where they dance for hours and hours to raise money for causes like a running marathon, but dancing he was donating to a friend and did it coins hot glued to a cardboard backing, making a big Penn State logo. Cool looking. Well, his girlfriend decided it was so cool looking it should be framed. She went to a frame shop and got a custom frame. That ended costing over $600 for something that was to be taken apart. The dabs were small, and he engineered it to come back apart easily shortly after it was given. He was pissed. And they couldn't even return it because it was a custom frame, so they ended up keeping it as to not totally waste $600, and he wrote a check for $50 for the donation. Now they have a silly, framed, 650 Penn State logo on their wall, and neither of them even went to Penn State. Story 36, I slowed down from 100 kilometers per hour to about 80 kilometers per hour on a highway because I saw a large kangaroo at the side of the road up ahead. Young guy, behind, revved his car at me. It drove really close and held his horn down, obviously annoyed. I had gently put the brakes on, so couldn't understand what his problem was. He just kept revving too. I put the brakes on again when I saw the roo start taking off in front of me. It would have safely passed in front of me until the idiot behind floored it around my car and absolutely decapitated the poor animal right in front of me. It went up and over his bonnet, rolled down the side of the car, finishing under the back wheel. I swear I saw it bend in half the wrong way. He pulled over further ahead, and I drove past him with tears in my eyes. In shock, he had a really nice, expensive-looking car, and the roo was large, so I really hope it did some exceptional damage to that loser's car, lest its death be a total waste. Story 37, I was on tour when we played Newcastle in England. Decently big gig for some small-timers like us. When discussing with the hosts, they mentioned that we should go and give the opening act a confidence boost, as it was their first ever gig. Went down and met them, talked to them, and they seemed absolutely confident, as soon discovered they were an experimental band, and that none of the guys actually played the instruments. That's right, they had decided to put a band together of non-musicians, not rehearse and play on the night, thinking it would make them seem creative and ambitious. It was atrocious and cringy, that's what it was. Story 38, kid from my high school graduated and got a full ride to my state's college and left 2 months in because they wouldn't let him play QB when they wanted him to be T. He's 68. Story 39, my cousin's mother decided to leave her husband for whatever reason and start dating someone else before her, and her husband had legally divorced. Sometime later, there was a confrontation between the husband and the boyfriend, which ended in the boyfriend shooting her husband in the head. Needless to say, he was dead before the police arrived. The husband was probably one of the nicest guys you could ever meet. I never did hear why they decided to separate in the first place. Story 40. In high school, I watched a guy who didn't smoke light a cigarette and announce to a crowd of kids that he was going to smoke for 1 month and stop, just to show smokers how easy it was to quit. That was like 17 years ago. He still smokes. Story 41. Girlfriend married a guy she knew was struggling with alcohol. He also was just a trashy guy I never cared for. I always thought she could do better. The drinking was the worst of it, though. Fortunately, she was able to get out before he got physically abusive or any kids entered the picture. Story 42. 27-year-old ex-boyfriend slept with a 14-year-old girl. She loves me, he said. Her parents decided to take him to court. They knew about the relationship the whole time, decided to take him to court when they found out she was pregnant, terminated the baby. She goes back on everything she said to him. She's 14, remember. He realizes he's been had, pleads guilty, gets 3 months in jail, and can never go back to the town she lives in. Will forever be labeled as a offender because he thought for some reason a 14-year girl who he knew slept around a lot with other people before him loved him and spoke to his soul. Side note, her mom saw me a while back. She's pregnant again at 15, but the parents are excited this time. I avoid them at all costs. I don't blame her at all. I highlight her age because my ex repeatedly told me she loved him and they were meant to be and blah blah. He was convinced, and it was absolutely disgusting and somewhat amusing when she just flipped the page and moved on. He was like, but she said she'd be on my side in court. Story 43. At work, I got called to a lady that had overdosed on heroin. Get there, she's semi-conscious on the couch. Also, drug-addicted boyfriend tells us she's 2 months pregnant. When we were asking the usual questions, just reminded me of Train Spotting. So sad. Story 44. Our English teacher told us about this incident that happened a few years ago. He went to this beach with his family, but it was high tide, the warning flags were up, and everything, so they couldn't swim. This lady comes along and lets her 3 kids go into the water. He tries to stop them and tell her it was high tide, but she wouldn't listen, and the kids go into the water anyway. Of course, the worst comes to pass and the kids are drowning. My English teacher and a few other men swim out and save the kids while fighting against the tide. When all the kids were saved, he gave the woman a proper scolding. He is a teacher after all. He says it still terrifies him to think what would have happened if the tide had been any stronger. Story 45. Watched a friend start coke in his 30s, like 32 or something. Had a really good job and no kids. I said to him, it was a really bad idea, as he can actually afford the stuff, and you can never really have enough of it. He's nearly 40 now, and his life hasn't moved forward an inch, really. Story 46. I'm currently watching a second cousin decline a full ride to a prestigious engineering university to attend a private Baptist college to become a youth minister. WTF? Story 47. Guy, let's call him Sean, was young. Never been with a woman before. Starts seeing this married girl that was separated from her husband. He gets laid and falls in love. A few months later, her and her husband decide to try to work it out for their kids. Sean can't stop thinking about her, so he figures out a way to get her away from her husband. He walks up to their living room window and shoots the husband in the head with a .22 rifle while he's playing with his 4-year-old daughter. He's doing life for premeditated murder. Story 48. A longtime friend of mine just invited a 20-year-old girl from a small Texas town to come live with him after only knowing her for a couple of months in a long-distance hookup kind of way. He's 29, makes good money, owns a house, etc. Normally, one wouldn't have any issues except she's got a 2-year-old son who she will bring with her when they live together. He has never been around kids before and doesn't know a thing about taking care of one. She's definitely a potential gold digger, and he's desperate, lonely, and wants instant gratification. She isn't even divorced yet and doesn't have custody worked out with her soon-to-be ex-husband. Where my friend lives and where she is from is about a 4-hour drive. This is going to blow up in his face. Story 49. A friend of my dad's sold up his house in central London and bought a place in France, 15 acres, swimming pool, 8-bed house, and a smaller house. Problem is it needs tons of maintenance, lots of repair work, and a small supply of staff to keep it running. Now, this wouldn't be a problem for a multimillionaire like the previous owner, but this guy isn't. He only has the money from the sale of his house, which is dwindling fast. It's also a 50-mile round trip to the local shops pub. There's no internet and no TV. He's bored out of his mind and has no company except his missus. And I think the realization of his situation is beginning to set in. People try to talk him out of it, but sometimes when people get an idea in their head, there is nothing you can say that will change their minds. I can see them trying to sell next year, but I don't think it will go very well. I think the previous owner was glad to be rid of it, to be honest, and I don't know how long he had it up for sale. Story 50. My friend Jay was drunk, saw an unattended police car, and wondered if it was locked, tried the door, Wasn't locked, opened the driver's side door, looked in. Suddenly, two policemen ran over, grabbed him. They slammed his head on the bonnet of the car. He was shouting and swearing like an idiot, much rage, etc. My friends and I talked the coppers around and persuaded them that he's just a curious idiot and not a car thief. He was allowed to go home with a warning, a police record. Once one of my friends decided to get this 100-pound girl to vodka bong with him. Within an hour, she was puking everywhere and was ghostal pale when we got her back home. I also once witnessed a skinny chick try to keep up with college football players doing shots. Story 51, I was once at Trap House. I was grabbing weed, and I saw this super trashy lady shooting up heroin and coke together. When she was done, some random guy who walked in while she was prepping it was like, "Can I use that when you're done?" And then he used the same needle. Story 52, hospice nurse here. We had a medical power of attorney that was a flight attendant. The patient was 103 years old and having one of the worst deaths I have seen, moaning, yelling, thrashing in the bed. We begged for the use of the comfort meds. He said no, she can't talk, she's dying. So there's no way she's in pain. She can't say she's in pain, so she's not. He never even saw her. 2 different MDs called, and this knew better than them. The best we could do was have the pharmacist compound Motrin into a rectal suppository, which is a horrible thing as it doesn't absorb well that way. Better than nothing to this day. I hate that person. There was no dignity in that death. That dude, this guy tried to rob a local convenience store. If only he knew that the owner had a gun in the back of the store. Story 53, X's friend chugged a 16-ounce glass of maple syrup. X's other friend got a full ride to play football for the Oregon Ducks. Got kicked out for selling weed. Story 54, my son getting involved with his ex. She has borderline personality disorder and now uses access to see his daughter as a way to try and control him. She has been caught lying to the family court judge on multiple occasions. Even served jail time for refusing visitation, but she still manages to make his life and deny her child a father. Story 55, a family friend's daughter turned down a full-ride scholarship to a good university a few years ago. She's literally done nothing with her life since then and has said she regrets not taking up that offer. Like, no. Story 56, not the worst, but I just witnessed this earlier today. Was taking a walk home from the gym, and this young kid dashes past me, probably 13 to 14 years old, maybe younger, wearing his school uniform and carrying a huge book bag. 5 minutes on, I come up to the first bus stop on my way home, and there he is, sitting at the bench looking like he's waiting for a bus. Cool. Guess he missed the bus he was running for. I carried on walking. A few minutes later, he dashes past me again. I come up to the next bus stop, and there he is, panting and looking at the road anxiously like he was still waiting for a bus. Bad luck, little bro. Guess we all have those days. A few minutes later, he dashes past me for a third time. There he is at the third bus stop, panting harder than before. What the? Maybe have a little patience and just wait and save your energy. A few minutes later again, he dashes past me, and I'm thinking what to this kid is either panicking because he's late for something or a complete idiot. At this point, I'm coming up to the fourth bus stop, and as he's running, he takes a look at the road and notices a bus approaching, and he doubles up into a full-on, this is at sprint. I'll be honest, at this point, I was quietly hoping he'd missed the bus because that was just bizarre what he was doing. Bus drives right past because it didn't notice this kid running for his life. I made a left turn after that stop, so I don't know what happened to the kid next. Some may say he's still running between bus stops to this day. Story 57, at the time, when my best friend went to go buy a project car about 3 hours away from where he was going to park it to work on it. This car was someone's daily, and we didn't even know how they managed to drive it the way it was. The steering rack was basically falling off, the brake rotors and pads were chewed up from having gone metal to metal so long, and the tires were bald. This thing was not road safe. Any shop worth there would probably never let you take this thing on the road. Still, he bought it. Not that I care, but we had to drive this thing 3 hours, and the entire time we were just anticipating total disaster. It was very cloudy, and given the condition of the tires and brakes, if it rained we were beyond hosed. I followed behind him, calling him every so often to make sure everything was all right. And we eventually made it home, started tearing into it to find that the timing belt was almost non-existent, and the engine was overfilled with oil by about 3 quarts. 90s Hondas, man. That poor car proceeded to need a lot of work multiple times. My friend questioned even buying the thing and thought to just sell it and cut his losses. As for why I say at the time, well, the car ended up making an astounding recovery and runs like a dream now. And the car I helped save eventually repaid the favor because I ended up getting in a wreck and was without a car until the insurance decided what to do with my car. My friend offers up the OL Honda, and I maintained that car for a month, and it never let me down. Even made an 8-hour drive down the coast just fine with 0 issues. Still runs excellent to this day. And while my friend sunk a lot of money into that car has been ridiculously reliable given the previous owner trying to kill it. and it's about to hit 300,000 miles. Seemed like a horrible decision at the time, but we gave that little car a chance, and it repaid the favor in spades.